Hey, best friend. Let's talk about an important topic today that so many of us face: burnout. And not enough of us talk about it. So, today we are going to dive into why it's so common, how to break free of it. And if you're feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, just sort of out of balance, friend, this episode is for you. So let's together explore how to reclaim your energy and create a life that you don't have to take a vacation from. Wouldn't that be excellent? I am no stranger, unfortunately, to burnout. I am a self proclaimed, and not just self proclaimed, it is true. I'm a high achiever. I'm always looking for the next thing, the next mountain, the next challenge, whatever it is that I need to do to achieve the next level. And unfortunately, what that does is it leads to a massive amounts of burnout. So I'm going to tell on myself in two different times in my life. So first, there's a theme here, by the way. First, in undergrad, I was trying to graduate early. I knew that I was going to go to grad school. I didn't at this point know that I was going to pursue a doctorate, but I knew that I was going to go to grad school. So I was like, listen, I don't want to be in school forever. So how about we knock out this undergrad thing in 3 years rather than 4 years and, get the show on the road. So I was taking 21 hours a semester, working, doing all the things, and I got mono. But I didn't know that I had mono. And by the way, it's like telling the story is the worst to me because I didn't even get it from like kissing somebody. Wasn't kissing nobody at that time. So who knows how I got mono, but somehow I did. And anyways, I was driving home for spring break with my family. And let me, before I even get there, I was exhausted all the time, as one would be if you had mono. And so I go to our campus clinic and they do my blood work and does not come back mono. I find out why later this happened, but I guess it was too soon. But the nurse comes in and she's like, you just must be depressed. And I look at her and I'm like, I'm not depressed. I like my life. I like the people in my life. I am not depressed. At this point I couldn't argue with her clinically, but I knew that I was not depressed. So I won't even begin to go down that path of how messed up that is, that the nurse or doctor, I'm not really sure, is wanting to push medication on me for depression when, yes, I'm describing low energy. Yes, I'm struggling to get out of bed, but it's not because I am having this overall low feeling about my life. So, anyways, driving home for spring break, fell asleep at the wheel like 11 a.m. And by the way, not much has changed. I would go to bed at a very reasonable hour. I was not staying up all hours of the night. Driving home, 11 a.m. ish. And I was right outside of this next big town. And I was like, man, I'm really tired. You know what? When I get to the next town, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull over. I'm going to get a Mountain Dew. This version of Brittany would never, ever go be like, yeah, I'm so tired. Let's get a Mountain Dew. The amount of sugar and chemicals and all the things. But, college age, early 20s Brittany, I was 21, would do that. But I didn't make it to the next town. I did not make it to the next town. I put my car up on a median because I fell asleep at the wheel while my car was on cruise control going 70 something miles an hour. Uh, God protected me. I walked out completely injury free. Literally, my car was propped up on top of a median. Tell me how that happens. Like, it looks like there was a ramp there that there was no ramp. My point here, though, is that I had a extreme amount of burnout. I think I got, because I was sleeping and I was working out and I was taking care of myself. I really believe that I got mono because I was so burnt out at the time. In fact, I couldn't even go to grad school the next year because supposedly I talked to an endocrinologist and he was like, he tested my blood like over a year later and he was like, yeah, you had a really strong strain of mono, whatever that even means. And so I couldn't even go to grad school early, which was my plan because I was so worn out from this. All right, so we got a theme. There's another one. When I was pursuing my doctorate, I would go to CrossFit every day, which, by the way, was a wonderful thing. And it was a heavy, but in that time, it was a heavy load on my body. So I'd go to CrossFit every day. I was taking more hours than one should getting their doctorate because I finished in 3.5 years because I'm crazy and had other crazy friends with me. And so we were just on the crazy train doing the crazy thing. And I was burnt out. I burnt out my body. I was so tired. I put on a bunch of weight, all this stuff while I was getting my doctorate. Really, the reality of it is I was pushing myself beyond my physical capacity. I think my mental capacity could handle it. I was still functioning, but my body was telling a story that my mind, my mental capacity was not telling. And uh, and I'm hardcore. So I just pushed through. I mean, go listen to my birth story on about Bowden. If you want to know if I'm hardcore and I just keep pushing through, that is a picture of that. So I just kept pushing my body, leading to this massive amount of burnout. Can you relate to that? Have you experienced that in your life? You know, you would have thought that I would have learned the lesson as a young 20 something, but I blamed it on mono and not on burnout. And it took me until I was a little bit older to experience something very similar again, not because of mono, although apparently you can reactivate your mono in your body when you put too much stress on it. So there's that. And I didn't learn that lesson until I was older, until I had to do it again. I don't know. Has anybody ever had to do something again? Friend, have you ever had to just do it again? Run that lap again? Yeah, I did. And if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you're constantly running on empty, you cannot get off the freaking hamster wheel. This episode is for you. You know, burnout is more common than you think. Maybe, I don't know. You may go like, all my friends, everyone I know is burned out. 53% of women, working women, report feeling more stressed than ever. And that's concerning to me on a variety of levels. But I also wonder what amount of women that are stay at home mamas and have a bunch of children and are trying to manage and do all the things, like how many of those women, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but how many of those women feel burned out too, struggling to rest, to take care of ourselves. It's a thing. And this isn't really about surviving burnout, but learning how to thrive in having balance in your life. And I need to give a disclaimer here because I think balance is elusive. I'm not sure that we ever fully have balance. I have these plates all the time that I am balancing, but I don't know, friend, that anything is ever fully balanced, fully stable in terms of the things that we're juggling, especially as women. Whether you are employed or not, being a stay-at-home mama is like the real deal. So whether you're balancing work, home, trying to take care of your physical health, maybe you've got goals, you're trying to achieve something, you're starting a mastermind, you're in the space of creating, there's all of these things pulling at your margins. And so that's why I go burnout is elusive. It's shady title over here. Burnout is elusive. Or balance is elusive, not burnout. And so we really need to think about that. But in this episode, you're going to walk away with some practical tools. We're going to talk about, nerdy stuff, science, psychology. And I want you to be able to have some tools to feel better again. And, uh, you need to recognize that this is not an overnight thing. Like if I just get sleep, I will feel better. Although sleep is magical. There's a difference too in feeling like you just need to sleep versus really being burnt out. So if you've been wondering like how did I get here? Why do I feel like this all the time? This episode is for you. Let's talk about how do we define burnout? Burnout is characterized by emotional exhaustion, sort of this depersonalization, kind of like you're existing. You're here, but you're not here. It's really struggle to be present. And this reduced sense of personal accomplishment. So maybe you're achieving things, but you're just like, I am so exhausted. There's just a continual giving over and over and over. It's interesting because neuroscientists talk about how chronic stress impacts our brain by shrinking our prefrontal cortex and amplifying the amygdala, which is that fight, flight, or freeze, making it harder to make decisions and regulate emotions. Let me say that again. Chronic stress, which leads to burnout, impacts our brain by shrinking the prefrontal cortex and amplifying the amygdala, making it harder to make decisions and regulate emotions, which when we are feeling burnout, when we are in this chronically stressed place, do we not need to be able to make sound decisions and regulate emotions rather than popping off at our husband, kids, the person that cut us off, whatever it is? Don't we need that? Even more so, chronic stress, aka burnout, dysregulates your nervous system and keeps you stuck in that fight or flight mode. If you feel like you are amped up all the time, it's like all you need somebody just needs to sneeze wrong in your direction and you're angry, you've got crying fits, you've got you've got this stuff. It's like you are at capacity all the time. That's a picture of burnout. Maybe you don't even look forward to your job anymore. I love my job. I I love so many things in my life, but I know that if I'm feeling pulled at all margins in my life, that it makes it very hard for me to show up as well as I can. And I bet you've experienced that too, where like, man, I say that these areas of my life are really important to me and I am struggling to show up how I need to. I feel that. Maybe sometimes you have this younger part inside of you that is pushing you of like you need to work more, you need to achieve more, you need to give more, show up more, serve more, more. And this younger part inside of us may be looking for love, acceptance, really this belief that if we were to fail, if we were to let somebody down, it means something bad about us, or that we would potentially lose love, lose acceptance, lose whatever. We need to be mindful that these younger parts inside of us can drive us towards burnout. Let's talk about from sort of like an NLP perspective of why burnout happens. Sometimes it's a meaning making issue. That I look at my job and I say, if I see X amount of clients a week and I'm pushing myself maybe beyond my capacity, that means I'm serving more. That means I'm meeting the needs of others. Maybe it's I'm even helping meet my family's needs by working more. Whatever it is, there might be a meaning making issue here. Sometimes also it's the words that we choose to live our life. Like if you say all the time, I'm so busy, I'm so stressed, I'm so exhausted, I'm burnt out, the brain automatically begins looking for ways for you to feel burned out, for you to feel exhausted. It even starts making meaning of things that could be good, uh, makes them have a more negative tone because those are the words that you're saying. So your unconscious mind really is working to bring that into fruition. It, like the brain is an amazing thing. The things that we say on repeat suggest to our mind how to feel, what to decide about our life. So maybe you've been choosing an emotional home that doesn't serve you. Again, exhausted, stressed, burnout. I actually made myself stop saying that I'm busy. I don't want an award for busyness. I don't know. Maybe productive, efficient, effective, BA, like man, I'm awesome. Like those are the things that I want to say rather than man, I'm just so busy. Cuz busy, at least to me, I have an internal representation in my mind, which is essentially a picture. And this internal representation, by the way, can be connected to a visual, an auditory, a feeling. And I have a picture in my mind of what it means to be busy. And by the way, the emotions that are connected with busy are negative for me. So if someone's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm so busy." My brain automatically starts to pull negative because that's my internal representation. Now, your internal representation of busy may be different, but for me, that's what it is. Sometimes, by the way, we even are burnt out because we lack boundaries. You lack boundaries, can't say no, whether it's your spouse, your boss, where you go to church, like whatever it is, maybe like you lack boundaries where, my pastor says, don't let good be robber of the best. And sometimes like saying yes to all the things, whatever all the things are, is actually good. The problem is that it takes away from best in our life. So maybe you lack boundaries. And if that's you, I created an epic episode on boundaries. I'll drop it in the show notes so you can go back and listen to how to set boundaries in your life. You heard me allude to like catching mono. My immune system was lower. I even pretty sure reactivated later in my life when I was dealing with a lot of burnout. Recent studies are really showing, friends, that burnout isn't just mental, that it does affect your immune system, your digestion, even your heart health. This constant state of stress, this constant state of fight or flight in our system creates internal issues. You get that, right? Maybe you've experienced it. Maybe you're having gut issues. Maybe you're like, I've always been so happy, Dr. Britt, and right now I just feel low in my life and I've never felt that way. That can be a picture of your gut microbiome being all sorts of jacked up, which is also where your serotonin is produced, which is your feel good stuff. So burnout impacts all of these areas. Are you saying that? So how do we overcome this? How do we overcome this? Well, let's consider that sometimes we just need to reframe things in our life rather than I have to do everything. It's I'm prioritizing what matters most to me. I have to do everything. Sometimes it's just like a sneaky little one word. It's like, oh, I have to clean my house. I have to pick up my kids. I have to, uh, like something that would be good. I don't know. I have to go to church. No, I get to. So even I get to pick up my kids. I get to clean my house. I get to go to church. The opposite of that is you don't have kids to pick up. You don't own your own home or rent a home, whatever. You don't have your own home to clean up. Maybe you live in a country where you'd get killed if you went to church. So, really, this picture of reframing is massively huge. And I mentioned it earlier, but it bears repeating. Sometimes we need to set boundaries. Sometimes we need to say no to what doesn't align with our goals and values. And by the way, sometimes no now isn't no forever, it's just no for a season. I know personally that I've had to say no in my life to things that I actually think are really good things. I've had to say, no, I cannot participate in that in this season because for me, my family, I say this all the time. My family is my first ministry. My family is my first priority. So if I say yes to that and it starts to really negatively, detrimentally impact my family, then it's not a best for me. Then it's something that I need to say no to. So maybe in this season, you need to say no to something. Not forever, just right now. You know, I mentioned that I actually stepped back from CrossFit and that season where I was like, my body is in fight or flight. My body is in over stress mode all the time. That CrossFit, which I actually believe is really good and probably the most fit I ever was in my life when I was doing CrossFit, I had to step back because the stress that was also putting on my body was an overload with everything else that I had going on. So I had to choose different forms of exercise. So maybe you need to have boundaries again that just don't align with your goals and values right now. I really want to encourage you that you need to schedule non-negotiable downtime. Non-negotiable downtime. Whether that's daily, weekly, where you are really doing things that add to your life, that you feel rest, that you're able to feel joy. I love to paint. And it is a restful thing for me. I might not be taking a nap, but it allows my brain to shut off to turn on different parts of my brain, and I listen to music that I like, and I'm just out in my own space and I'm not on a device, and it's rest for me. Maybe you need to schedule non-negotiable time, and you need to consider it like an appointment that you're making with someone, whether that's a lunch or a business appointment, that you go, I would not show up for them. I wouldn't cancel on them. I wouldn't be that person. You need to not be that person to yourself. If you can't keep your promises to yourself, we really end up in a negative place. And I know that that's been true in my own life when I was running around with some baggage internally, that I was sabotaging my own goals. I had stuff going on internally that was getting in the way. I wasn't keeping my promises to myself. So I want to encourage you in that. Again, I probably say this ad nauseum, but a gratitude practice shifts you from, I mean, and research talks about this, that it shifts you from overwhelm to fulfillment. You know, in my times when I feel overwhelmed by my children, I'm like, thank you, God, for these beautiful children that I fought for in my life, that I get to enjoy and appreciate. Or like, I don't know, my daughter lately has been on like level 10 in her volume. And sometimes it's a lot. And most of the time I'm like, whatever, I prayed for these little kid sounds. And so I'm so thankful for them. And sometimes I'm like, man, this is a lot of noise. And so I will ask her to, bring it down a couple of notches. But internally, I'm like, God, thank you so much for these little loud noises happening in my car and my sphere. I'm so grateful because the alternative is a quiet house where I don't have children's feet, children's voice, children's toys, children's nonsense happening in my home. And thank you, God, for that. You need to focus on what you can control, not what you can't. You have to release what you can't. You have to release what you can't. And I'm not sitting here telling you that this is easy. You have to embrace the idea that rest is productive. Embrace the idea that rest is productive, that you are actually energizing your body, that you are actually helping you show up better in the future by resting. What a different way to look at rest. That all that is a reframe of rest is productive. I worked with a client recently, and I love her so much. And she was sitting on my couch. We were doing our breakthrough session, and she's a go-getter. She's always making stuff happen, which I so appreciate about her. She was like, I normally get 16,000 steps in a day, and right now I'm at like 2,000. And because she's moving, and it's a picture that rest was productive. While she wasn't doing things, she was doing so much internally. She was letting the baggage go. She was releasing all the stuff that's held her back so she can feel joy and peace and rest and have a life full of love. And in order to do that, she had to sit still and rest physically, allow her mind to clear out the stuff that needed to be there. It's so powerful. Rest is productive. So, friend, focus on what you can control, not what you can't. And a lot of times, what we can't control is what we say yes and what we say no to. It's also really important that we're kind to ourselves in this practice, that we really do acknowledge that there is this part internally that feels overwhelmed in every way. And we need to be kind to that part and just go, all right, it's okay. You're super exhausted and you've got a lot on your plate and you're epic. You're trying to achieve all the things and make all of it happen, and you're awesome. And self, right now we need to rest. And we're going to rest without guilt. And we're going to show up and we are going to binge watch a show. We are going to paint. We are going to make a meal and just listen to music. We're going to go on a nice walk. We are going to rest. And it's okay. It's okay that there's laundry piled up. It's okay that the dishes haven't made it into the dishwasher yet. It's okay that you've got a pile of clothes in your closet right now. You need to rest, because a rested me is a better me. A rested me shows up well for everyone. A rested me can serve without the burnout. The rested me can give fully without the burnout. The rested me can run fast after my goals without the burnout. And it's interesting too that I didn't look at the statistics, but it's an interesting thought. In my personal experience, I find that women seem to be in a place where they get burned out more than men. And men are wired to go after, to accomplish, to achieve. It's a masculine energy. And by the way, I know many of us live or need masculine energy in order to achieve what we want to. But women in a feminine energy, it's a being energy. And a lot of times I find that we get to this place where we are burnt out because we haven't been existing in our feminine energy the way that we need to, which is that being place. Sitting, reading, resting, painting, dancing to music, connecting with friends, being. We need to be. And then my biggest heavy hitter for this is mental and emotional release, that you get with somebody that knows how to use this tool, that you get rid of the baggage internally that's creating the burnout in your life, um, because that's what's moving you and pushing you to a place of burnout. That if you get rid of that, you don't have to push the way that you need to, or you're able to push without the emotional baggage of why you have to do it. Like you're going to lose love ultimately if you don't achieve. Well, then you can just achieve and not have that emotional weight of, because if I don't, I won't be loved. That's internally exhausting. It's exhausting. Friend, I really want you to see ultimately that burnout isn't personal failing. It's just a sign that something needs to change. And just like I mentioned with you in my own life, that I didn't get it the first time around, but I did get it the second, that something needed to change. Reclaiming balance as much as possible is an act of self love that really does help us take a step forward to living a life that truly fulfills us. I know that you want that. I know that you want a life of fulfillment, of the being able to take in the beauty that is there for you. So I really want you to think about this. I think about the scripture from Matthew 11 that says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." And when I think about bringing what burdens us to God and the rest that's even there with that, is in order to rest to rest in Him, is we have to be still. So even thinking about in your life, where do you need to be still for your mind, for your body, for your soul? Be still. So as per my usual, I'm going to ask you some questions for you to really reflect on. The first one is, where in my life am I feeling the most overwhelmed or out of balance? Number two, what is one thing that I can do to let go and create more space for rest in my life? What is one thing I can do to let go to create more space for my life? Space for rest. How can I start? Number three, how can I start setting boundaries that protect my time and energy? Number four, what practices or habits bring me true joy and restoration? And how can I make space for them? And five, how can I shift my mindset from doing more to being more present? I really want to encourage you, don't bypass these questions. Really ask yourself these questions and choose one small action that you can prioritize today to reclaim balance in your life. And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Get in a community of people. You don't have to do it alone. Reach out to me. You don't have to do it alone. You are worth every step towards a healthier life, towards a life that you're maximizing, that you're able to enjoy and be present in. So friend, until next week,